Hello my friends and welcome back to the Be My Guest podcast channel with me, your boy Sean Boy Joe, and in this video and in upcoming videos along with the podcast series I will be reacting to some of the programs that my guests used to watch when they were younger. Now, in case you don't know, one of the running themes in my podcast series is that I ask my guests what they watched when they were kids. It's a little nostalgic trip back in time for them, and also it's a bit of an education for me as well, because 9 times out of 10 I haven't a clue what they're talking about or the programs that they used to watch. So today we're going to be reacting to, or I'm going to be reacting to, Iain Lauchlan's suggestion, which is a character called Mr Pastry. Now, I'd never heard of Mr Pastry until Iain mentioned it in the initial podcast I did with him, and he remembers it fondly, as do a lot of my older friends as well. And the funny story was, and I mentioned this in the Tweenies podcast reunion that is coming out very soon, that a matter of days after I did the podcast with Iain, I went on a walk with another friend of mine who was also called Iain, and whilst on the walk, we came across an antiques fair. And what should I find in that antiques fair? A Mr Pastry annual, and I think it cost me about £2, dirt cheap. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to get that. Just a funny coincidence. So with that being said, I'm reacting to Mr Pastry at the Circus, which was televised in 1960. I couldn't find very many Mr Pastry clips on YouTube, and the ones I did find were only about 2 or 3 minutes long, so I'm going to react to a couple of them. Maybe it's because they aired in clips or sketches, I'm not sure. So yeah, maybe you'll know a bit more than I do. So with that being said, hit that like button, hit that subscribe if you're seeing my face for the first time or you haven't yet, because it really, really does help the channel. So yeah, do that, and let's get on with watching this video. Okay, here we go.
One who's always getting into hot water, but ensures that everyone else enjoys themselves, is Mr Pastry, sometimes known as Dickie Hearn. One of the reasons Mr Pastry is so popular with kids is that at heart he's really an overgrown schoolboy and behaves like one, although we doubt whether many youngsters have this sort of ingenuity.
The voice. So 1960s.
Like most youngsters, Mr Pastry can't resist animals, in this case those belonging to Chipperfield Circus. And although visitors are not supposed to feed them, he's quite prepared to stick his neck out for the privilege. Actually, to be strictly honest, Mr Pastry isn't really an uninvited guest. He's calling on the animals between acts during a performance in the circus ring. For although most people associate him with the stage and other mediums, the circus is really his first love. In fact, Dickie Hearn first joined a circus at the age of 7, his mother being an actress and his father a famous clown. The animals are really old friends, but Dickie, who grew up in this atmosphere, he calls it his university, keeps coming back despite his other commitments all over the world. There's practically nothing he can't do, and although he can manage to look pretty clumsy now in front of the Shipway brothers, to whom the equipment belongs, he is, of course, an expert in this and every other form of gymnastic maneuver. Just for the record, a lot of people have been confused by that makeup and often wonder how old he really is. Well, Mr Pastry is ageless, but Mr Hearn was born in 1908, although you'd never know it to look at him. Most of his spare time is spent raising money for spastic children. And needless to say, he's been as successful in that as in his own career. Incidentally, in case you're wondering what's going on, we thought to end, it might be interesting to see Mr Pastry climb on something without falling off.
Okay, that was quite interesting. Yeah, kind of reminds me of a Mr Bean of that era. Yeah, but slightly older. Yeah, I don't think you'll be able to get away with some of the terminology that was used in that video. I wonder if Mr Pastry ever speaks or whether it's just narration, because that very posh narrator was going 100 miles an hour. So yeah, you'd have to listen carefully in order to understand what he's saying. Yeah, very British. So the next clip that we're going to see, because as I said, these clips are very short. They're more like sketches, I believe. So the next one is called At Home with Mr Pastry. Richard Herring.
Better known as Mr Pastry, are busy getting ready for the fete they hold every year at Platt Farm, Hearn's farmhouse home near Rootham in Kent. The fete's in aid of a different good cause each time, and this year it's for spastic charities. The whole family joins in to prepare the stalls and put up the bunting. Here's another daughter, Sarah. Richard Hearn's been at Platt Farm for 20 years. In fact, just about as long as that unforgettable character, Mr Pastry, has been in existence. And the annual fete has become quite a local institution.
So this must be the actor's name, Richard.
The flag's flying, and it's almost time for the customers to arrive. At least it should be perfectly clear which way they have to go. If Mr Hearn doesn't stop bossing people around, including his wife Yvonne, then Mr Pastry is going to be late for the opening. Our cameraman is privileged to watch a very solemn event, the transformation of Hearn into Pastry.
Ah, I see. So he's going to transform into Mr Pastry.
Mr Pastry gets through about a dozen moustaches a year, but the glasses and boots are the original pastry props of 20 years ago, which is surprising because Mr Pastry is such an active character, you'd think the boots would wear out quicker than the moustache. But one thing never wears out, Mr Pastry's patience with children.
That's quite clever.
The resourceful Hearns have thought up quite a variety of different stalls, but although stalls need people to run them, it's not much good relying on Mr Pastry for a continuous stint on any of them. The customers keep him much too busy. Here it comes, the traditional accompaniment to an English fete. But tradition also demands that one should do one's best to ignore it. There goes another moustache.
All right. Yeah, that was interesting. I don't know how I feel about Mr Pastry. Yeah, it's a very different era, obviously. You know, it's the 50s and the 60s. I mean, yeah, it's very simple comedy. Very good at what he does. Again, reminds me of a Mr Bean of that era. But maybe not as silly as Mr Bean. I could only find a couple of short skits or clips on YouTube, so I'll have to check him out thoroughly. It seems that there's no... seems that he doesn't talk in the episodes either. It's just narration, which is interesting. Yeah, so I can see why people of that time liked Mr Pastry. I can see a character like Mr Pastry working today, obviously modernised, and you've got to change the way that the dialogue is, you know, and the terminology, because some of the stuff in there you won't be able to get away with saying now. We bleeped it out. So yeah, interesting how they don't just play him as a character. They play him as the actor playing the character, which I liked as well. So yeah, there we go. That was my reaction to Mr Pastry. Let me know if you have watched Mr Pastry in the comments below, and any other videos that you would like me to react to. And I will catch you, if not in a podcast, in the next video. I will see you soon. Peace.